Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a huge financial problem that is, well, it's really crippling efficiency across the entire retail sector.
Mhm.
It's the story of what happens when the way a company earns its money is, fundamentally at odds with how it pays for the tech that makes that money.
It sounds a bit abstract, I know, but the concept is very simple. Retailers earn money transactionally.
Right, with each sale or search.
Exactly. A customer buys a sweater, they complete a search, and order is fulfilled. But historically, they've paid for all that underlying technology with these fixed, really hefty monthly commitments for server capacity.
Regardless of whether anyone is actually on the site.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're hitting peak holiday sales or it's just a slow Tuesday afternoon in summer. You pay the same.
And, this isn't just some internal headache anymore. Our sources are framing this as a full-blown strategic crisis.
Yeah, the reports for 2024, they really paint a stark picture.
They do. Managing cloud spend is now the top challenge for, 82% of enterprises? And for retail specifically, the data shows they're averaging a staggering
28% waste.
28% waste in their cloud budgets. I mean, think about that.
Yeah, that's almost a third of your tech budget just gone on servers that are sitting there idle. And this waste, it's happening at just the worst possible time.
Exactly, because while they're bleeding money on the inside, the external costs just to get people in the door are skyrocketing.
You're talking about customer acquisition cost or CAC.
Yeah, ProfitWell data shows that CAC has shot up by 60% over just the last 5 years.
Wow.
So you have this huge financial anchor of waste inside, and then these steeply rising costs just to get a customer to even look at you.
It creates an almost impossible situation for any kind of sustainable growth.
So, our mission today, looking at all this material, is to unpack the argument for why this disconnect has to be fixed now. We are diving deep into how aligning cloud costs with that rising CAC is really a fundamental necessity, not just for efficiency, but for survival.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this.
So this whole problem, it really stems from a legacy mindset from before the cloud.
From capacity planning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You operated under this model where you had to provision for your absolute peak. You planned for Black Friday, the holiday rush, and you kept that capacity running all year long.
And that made sense back then, right? When you were buying physical servers for a data center?
It made perfect financial sense. That was a capital expenditure, a CapEx model. You bought the box, you owned the box, you depreciated it. The operating expense was pretty predictable.
But when that same thinking just got lifted and shifted into the cloud, everything changed.
It changed completely. You moved from CapEx to OpEx, a consumption-based model. And carrying that fixed capacity thinking over to the cloud is what our sources call a fundamental strategic error.
Because now you're paying for commitments, not for hardware.
Yes, and you pay for those commitments whether you use them or not.
And this is where that hidden cost just starts to balloon on the financial statements. And we're not talking about a small rounding error.
No, it's a hemorrhage. Let's use the sources example to put a real number on it.
Okay.
Imagine a mid-market retailer spending, say, $50,000 a month on cloud infrastructure. If their average utilization is only 35%, which is pretty typical.
Meaning 65% is just sitting idle.
Right. That retailer is spending $32,500 every single month on servers that are literally doing nothing.
Wow. $32,500 a month? That's enough to hire a couple of senior engineers. That's a massive actionable expense.
It is.
Yeah.
And the long-term effect is what the sources are calling strategic blindness. Because those infrastructure costs are just this fixed, siloed number, they don't really influence any other decisions.
So the marketing teams are running their CAC campaigns.
Without any idea of the infrastructure costs their successful campaigns are actually generating. And the product teams, they're building these great new resource-intensive features.
Like a recommendation engine or something?
Exactly. And they have no clear feedback loop on the computational expense of that feature versus the actual value it delivers to a customer.
So you could have a wildly successful campaign that brings in 10,000 new customers, which looks great on paper, but that success might actually trigger such high infrastructure costs that the business becomes less profitable.
And you wouldn't even know until the big cloud bill lands 30 days later.
You're just flying blind on your actual unit economics.
Completely.
So we have wasted money, strategic blindness, rising CAC. How do you even begin to untangle this? Here's where it gets really interesting. Because the source material points right at serverless computing as the answer.
Serverless is really the architectural shift that lets you move beyond paying for a provisioned box.
Can you just unpack the mechanism there? Because I think for a lot of people, serverless just means you don't manage the server, but the economic shift is the real game changer here, isn't it?
It absolutely is. The core change is the cost mechanism. You go from paying for provisioned capacity servers waiting around 24/7 to paying only for the actual compute time consumed when a transaction runs.
So the function only exists and only costs you money when it's actively being called.
Right. When it's done, the cost meter stops.
So you're not paying for a theoretical peak anymore. You're paying for a microtransactional unit of work.
What's fascinating here is that this temporary nature of serverless functions allows for this incredible cost attribution. Every single purchase, every search, every little account activity is a distinct event.
Which means it can be measured.
It can be precisely measured, tagged, and then tied directly back to the specific customer action that triggered it. You just can't do that with a traditional, long-running virtual machine.
And for retailers, this unlocks, what, 3 big strategic advantages?
For sure. The first and the most obvious one is it just eliminates that baseline cost. The expenses for those slow periods, the Tuesday in July, they drop to almost zero. You stop paying that 32 grand a month for nothing.
And the second is dynamic scaling.
Truly dynamic. You don't have to guess and provision ahead of time. It just automatically scales up to handle a flash sale or, a viral social media post.
Yeah.
And it does it without crashing.
And the third, which I think is the most important, is the cost alignment.
Total cost alignment. Your infrastructure costs scale directly and proportionally with real customer activity. Fewer purchases, your bill goes down. Successful campaign, your bill goes up. But it goes up with the revenue you're generating.
That makes perfect sense. But let me just play devil's advocate for a second. If you're running a massive, mature e-commerce platform, migrating all of that to a purely serverless architecture seems like a monumental task. Do the sources talk about that?
That's a great point, and yes, they do. They stress that this isn't a rip-and-replace strategy overnight. For most retailers, it's going to be a hybrid approach.
Okay.
The focus is on using serverless for new services first, or for those high-volume, isolated functions where the cost benefits are just immediate and dramatic. Things like search or payment processing. It's a phased approach, but the goal is always the same.
To make the marginal cost of serving one more customer precisely calculable.
Exactly.
And that calculability, knowing that exact cost per action, that leads to the next big benefit, granular visibility.
Right. With the old fixed cost model, all you got was one big bill at the end of the month.
A mystery number, basically.
Yeah. Now, you can know the cost of everything. You can analyze the infrastructure expense of, say, search queries from the specific geographic region, or you can compare the cost of a buy now, pay later transaction versus a standard credit card one.
And that visibility is what finally allows for surgical optimization. You're not just trying to shrink a big VM anymore.
Yeah.
You can actually identify high-cost, low-value activities. So, for instance, if you see a complex recommendation feature costs 5 cents per user, but it only drives a tiny conversion lift, you can make a real data-driven decision to simplify it or even get rid of it.
Your focus shifts from just general cost cutting to actual strategic profitability. You can finally build these sophisticated models of customer lifetime value, or CLV, against not just the acquisition costs, but the ongoing cost to serve that customer.
Which, in this competitive environment, is everything.
It's your lifeline.
But the sources are really clear on this, and I think it's crucial. You don't get this just by flipping a technical switch. To get to transaction-based economics, you need organizational change.
Deep organizational change. The material lays out 3 critical components for this to work.
Okay, what's component 1?
Component 1 is building comprehensive cost attribution mechanisms.
Right.
This is the technical plumbing. You have to be able to connect every single infrastructure expense directly to a specific customer activity, a product feature, or a business function.
So you have to instrument your applications to track this stuff.
You do. You have to track not just performance metrics like latency, but actual cost metrics, the computational expense of every API call, every database query. You're micro-tracking the cost.
And the good news is the tools for this are getting better. Things like automated cost tagging, distributed tracing. The sources mention companies like Geekians, who design serverless architectures with this kind of cost observability built in from day one.
Right. So it stops being an accounting problem that you look at later. That visibility then enables component 2, which is creating new optimization frameworks.
Meaning cost becomes a first-class constraint.
Exactly. Alongside performance and security. It's a huge cultural shift for engineering teams who, have always been rewarded for speed and reliability.
So their core metric changes.
It have to. They're not just optimizing for response time anymore. They're optimizing for cost per transaction. They might actually choose a slightly slower database query if it results in a massive drop in consumption costs, as long as the user experience is still good.
Which brings us to component 3, which sounds like the hardest one, governance structures. This is about tearing down the silos.
It is. This is where you fight that strategic blindness head on. In the old model, a product manager wants a new AI-powered image search. They greenlight it, engineers build it, and 6 months later, finance just sees the cloud bill explode.
But with FinOps governance,
The product manager needs to understand the expected cost per search query before they launch. The marketing teams need to know if, say, customers from Instagram use more high-cost features, and they need to factor that into their CAC calculation for that channel.
it creates a shared accountability.
It does. And the most sophisticated retailers are taking us even further. They're using what's called dynamic optimization.
You mean automated decisions?
Automated, real-time decisions. They have algorithms making financially informed technical choices in milliseconds, adjusting capacity, caching, even data storage, all based on current profitability margins.
So what does this all mean? If you're a retailer listening right now, what is the single biggest takeaway from all this?
Well, the conclusion from our sources is pretty undeniable. Aligning your cloud costs with your customer acquisition economics. It's quickly becoming a fundamental strategic capability.
None a nice to have.
Not at all. It's the ultimate competitive differentiator. As CAC keeps rising, being able to precisely calculate and optimize the full end-to-end cost of a customer becomes non-negotiable. It's about survival.
And it requires treating FinOps financial operations not as some cost-cutting team in accounting, but as a core strategic discipline.
A strategic discipline that has to run through product, marketing, and engineering. It's what allows you to make those informed trade-offs between investing in growth and maintaining efficiency. It's the key to profitable scale.
And that leads to the final provocative thought we wanted to leave you with from this deep dive. Given that this alignment requires this massive cultural and structural shift, finance, marketing, product, and engineering all on the same page, how will retailers actually measure the return on investment of establishing those new governance structures and collaborative practices themselves? It seems like the cost of collaboration might just be the next frontier for this kind of strategic optimization.